Hello, this is David Richards. I'm the director at the Margaret Chase Smith Library. We've been closed to the public since the middle of March, and we got to thinking about ways we can get our stories about people that we interact with out to the public, since the public can't come here. We want to start to get those stories out, and so we're doing some Zoom interviews with folks, and we will put them up on our Facebook page. And as our first guest, we have Harley Rogers. Welcome, Harley.
Hello.
Hi. So can you just give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah. So, as David said, my name is Harley. I just graduated from the University of Maine this spring. I studied political science, history, and leadership studies. And this spring, I also just finished my honors thesis, which was titled Female Political Campaigns, Just the Right Amount of Femininity. And in that thesis, I looked at Margaret Chase Smith as a candidate and how she portrayed herself during her 1964 presidential primary.
So did I just hear you say that you had like 3 majors?
So my major is political science, and then
Okay.
I minored in history and leadership studies. So
Political science, history, and leadership studies. Tell us about leadership studies.
it was really interesting how I came across it. My very first semester at University of Maine, I took it because it was Introduction to Leadership Studies, and I thought that sounded interesting. And then they were like, this is a minor and you could do it. And so pretty much from after that class, I was like, yes, I'm doing this. And we really explored not only like theoretical principles of leadership, but it was pretty much just how to apply being a leader to all sorts of different situations. And it really broke down a lot of the myths, the kind of the strong man approach to leadership, and really showed the different ways you could be a leader.
As you were doing this study, did you make any connections to Margaret Chase Smith?
Oh, definitely. Yes, it's really interesting to look at how different leaders do take approaches to leadership. And it's definitely helped me, like, with the study with Margaret Chase Smith and the leadership study courses to kind of develop how I want to be a leader.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So what thoughts do you have about how you'd like to be a leader?
I definitely like the of the people approach to leadership. I think it's really hard to be a leader of a group of people in any situation where you don't really know what your followers are doing. If you haven't had that experience, then it's hard to be that leader for them. And so that's definitely how I want to lead, is knowing and taking the time to go down and or come up from a position. So and I think Margaret did that for sure, of being from Maine, and she never acted like she wasn't of the people.
Do you have aspirations of offices you'd like to hold someday?
Yes, I would love to be a United States Senator.
Really?
Yes, that is the long-term goal. But I'm actually really interested in state politics as well. So.
Have you been involved in elective politics at all with campaigning?
Not with campaigning, because usually my schedules just don't line up. But I had an internship with the Senate Democrats this spring, before it was cut short with the coronavirus. But that was really, really fascinating. I got to work, reading bills and helping senators, and it was a really great experience.
So let's dive into it was an honors thesis, correct?
Correct, yes.
And it's been successfully defended, right?
Yes, it was.
So do you have an elevator speech of what your honors thesis topic was about?
Yeah, so my whole point of my thesis was looking at the ways that female politicians conform to and challenge gender expectations of them while they're pursuing public office. So the quick way to explain it is, or at least how I looked at it, was that it's kind of a balancing scale of you have to appear feminine enough that you won't be questioned on why aren't you acting feminine, but also not so feminine as to essentially like distract from the role of the office. And so that's what I did. And when looking at Margaret Chase Smith and how she did that, specifically in her 1964 presidential primary election. And so I looked at the ways that she was, appearing feminine, but also at the same time, she was holding a massive amount of power, which at the time was still considered, a masculine position.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Can you give some examples of how she walked that tightrope?
Definitely. So I guess the easiest first thing that you can see when you look at Margaret is that she's always very well put together, very, very feminine. The rose, of course, is an icon whenever you think about her. But then you can also look at what I specifically focused a lot on was how she spoke about feminism and spoke about women. And you can definitely see the tight walk that she's trying to balance, because on one hand, she does not want to be associated with the feminist movement, because at the time it was definitely considered, an extremist position, or a little too progressive for what would have been acceptable. Sorry. But she is still talking about, there's no reason why a woman can't hold this position. A woman's place is everywhere. And I really liked that quote from her. But yeah, so basically the thesis is me breaking down, all right, this is really feminine, but this is where she kind of has to pull it back, because given her position at the time, and given how I don't want to use the word unheard of, but she was already holding significant power for a woman at this time, that it was hard to push down even more barriers. Is pretty much my argument.
You had to defend this before committee?
Yes, I did.
How many were on the committee?
I had 5.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes.
What sort of questions did they have for you?
A lot of it was on methods, things like that. So they wanted to really know how did I take all of these sources and boil down specifically the points that I was looking at. So like I said, I looked at her physical appearance. I looked on her dialogue on women. I looked on examples of housewifery, I called it. And of course, her legislative accomplishments. So they really wanted to know, how did you go about identifying those? And so basically I went through all the scrapbooks and I started writing them down, and could very easily start to see those patterns come up. I looked at the January 1964, one of the scrapbooks, and I went through and I read every single article. And I tallied every single time there was gendered language. So things like, or language that specifically targeted Smith as a woman or Smith's appearance. And I think there was 141 articles, and there was, it was in the high 90s of like gendered instances. So that was a really powerful study that I was able to show.
Did you compare her to other female politicians?
That was the goal originally. I wanted to compare her to a more contemporary woman who had ran for president. Unfortunately, given the year-long time constraint, I was not able to expand in this particular thesis to do that comparison. But I was in the thesis just able to kind of bring up contemporary statistics of women running for office and start to show that comparison in it. But it would be very easy to read the thesis and then make very, very direct connections to contemporary women.
Will your thesis be available at some point?
Yes, it will. It will be available on the digital commons. It can be for the University of Maine. If somebody searched the Honors College at the University of Maine and the Thesis, you can search my name and it'll pop up.
Excellent.
And that, I don't know the exact date that it will be online, but it should be online very soon.
Sometime this summer, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So just go to the University of Maine website, find the Honors College, and then
Yep.
type in Harley Rogers.
Yes, there's a thesis search,
Okay.
and then mine will be available online. So
Great. How
yeah.
many pages did it turn out to be?
I think it was 54.
And did you have a celebration when it was done?
I did, yes. I defended when everything was shut down, but I bought a cake, and so I ate cake afterwards. So yeah.
So I'm going to do a share screen here to show how we first, maybe not exactly first, but you did some of your research here at the library.
Yep.
And you talked about the scrapbooks. Were there other important sources that you were
Yes,
able to access here?
I also looked a lot at her recipe collection. So I'm part of the Margaret Chase Smith Recipe Research Collaborative, which specifically looks at Margaret Chase Smith's recipes as historical artifacts. So basically we use the recipes as tools to kind of look at how, what they mean in relation to her life and also just women's lives in general. So I also included a lot with her recipes in the thesis as well, because that is another example of excluding femininity or to connect audiences.
Is that how you first sort of came to know Margaret Chase Smith, is through this project?
Yes. So I think most school-age children in Maine know her name.
Yeah.
They may not necessarily know all the details, and I think that was kind of the case with me. And I was like, oh, I know Margaret Chase Smith. I did not. I learned so much. But yes, so one of my advisors, Dr. Rachel Snell, she invited me to the collaborative. And yeah, so I was in the collaborative, so I was looking at her recipes. And at the time, I knew that I needed to start thinking about what my thesis was going to be on. It had to be something to do with politics because of my major. And it kind of just came to me one evening. I was sitting in my bedroom, I was watching TV, and it just kind of light bulb moment, and the rest was history. So yeah.
Excellent. So you've done research with her recipes. Do you have some favorite recipes?
Yes, quite a few. I have to think which ones are my favorite.
Are there any are there any that you're still using in your
Yes.
repertoire?
Yes, she has a date bar recipe I highly recommend. I personally put dark chocolate chips in it. That was my little tweak to her recipe. But they're very, very good. I recommend for sure.
Did hers have any chips in them, or is that a complete new addition?
That's me. Yeah, she did have nuts on top,
Oh.
so kept that. Yeah, but I like to add a little bit more sweetness to it. So.
We find with many of the older recipes that they didn't use as many sweeteners as we use today. She has a blueberry muffin recipe, which I don't think has any sugar at all. We had to add sugar to it. But you have to remember, I mean, growing up or going through the Depression, especially during World War II when you didn't have access to stuff like that. We are much more addicted to the sweeteners than they were.
Yeah. It'd probably be best if I did leave it out, honestly.
It'd probably be better for all of us if we left more of the sweeteners out. So do you know what the status of the recipe project is? I know there had been discussions of trying to do a cookbook so that people could more readily have access to the recipes.
Yes, I know that is still the plan. Unfortunately, this semester kind of went all crazy, so the current status I couldn't really talk about because things got a little bit crazy, but hopefully in the fall we'll be able to have that clear idea of where we're going to, when we're going to have it. So.
Will you still be able to be involved with it, or are you moving on at this point?
That is a good question. To be determined.
Okay.
I actually got a job at Fogler Library at the University of Maine, so I will still be around.
Okay.
Probably still be doing research for the fun of it.
Okay, good.
So yeah, we will see. I hope so.
Okay. So one question that popped into my mind with Margaret right behind me is if you had the opportunity to meet Margaret and interview her, what sort of questions would you have had for her?
Oh goodness, 100 questions.
Well, why don't you just give us a sampling? We won't go through all 100 right now.
There's so many questions. I think I would love to ask her, specifically later on in life. I noticed that in her letter, she became a little bit more honest, or maybe a little more blunt about her experiences in office. And I think I would just really like to just have a discussion with her about, how was it really? Because while she was in office, obviously she's not going to say, I'm being treated poorly, or, I don't have my own bathroom. I have to use the visitor's bathroom, things like that. So I would really like to ask her about, what her experience really was like. And then, how she did find that balance of,
Well, I want to move on to some other aspects of your life as well, but I did have one more image to share. And it's you with the poster. So tell us about this poster.
Yes. So this was the very early stages of my thesis, in which I was, looking at, like I said, her physical appearance, how the press was covering her, and kind of how the media plays a role in, contributing to stereotypes that we might have of women. And so this was one of my posters, and I was presenting this at the town hall meeting at the library. I actually I don't remember if it's this poster or if I did one very, very similar to this, and I actually brought this to New Orleans, and I presented on this for the National Honors Collegiate Conference. Yeah.
How did that go?
It went really great. I had a lot of great feedback. And I would say it was about 50-50 people knew who Margaret Chase Smith was in New Orleans. And we were people from all over the country. So it was really great.
Was this a mix of students and professors?
Yes. Yep. So a lot of we had judges. So there'd be several judges that would come over and we'd kind of give our spiel. And then other students would, of course, come over and ask maybe less tough questions. But so the other professors that would come, they would, we would give our talk, and then they would really, really ask us hard questions. And that was really, really helpful in furthering my thesis and knowing where I needed to do more research and where I needed to really strengthen my argument. So it was really great.
And did you also present this at the University of Maine? Because I know they have a student research symposium.
I was supposed to, unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately.
Sorry for bringing that up.
No, it's okay. I do know that they are having it again in the fall. I will not be a student, unfortunately. But.
I didn't know that. I thought you had already done it.
Yeah, I wish I had, but no, unfortunately, it was like a month after everything shut down.
Well, at least you got to do it in New Orleans.
True. That was very nice.
I always enjoy going there. It used to be at the Cross Center, and there'd be hundreds and hundreds of student projects.
Oh, yeah.
I guess the plan was to move it to Alphon this year?
Yes, or maybe it's the Cross Center. I'm not sure.
Okay.
We didn't get that close.
All right. Were they able to do anything virtually, or they just sort of scrap it all together?
Yeah, it was just kind of scrappled because I know some of my friends, they have to finish up their research, but then they all of a sudden be in their labs. Yeah. So a lot of people just couldn't finish their research. A lot of it was just put on hold very quickly. So I'm sure that contributed to why they
Mhm.
off.
So let's move on to the craziness. This is not what you expected for your senior year in college.
No, it was not. I was looking forward to 2020 for quite some time because I knew it was going to be the year I graduated. But yeah, it did not turn out how I thought it would turn out.
Mhm.
Um, I think the word for it would just be anticlimactic.
Mhm.
Um, there was just like a lot of things that we didn't really get to do.
Mhm.
Um, I remember I was having a conversation with the people in my fellowship, different project,
Mhm.
um, and we were talking and we're like, yeah, like there's rumors that like the university could shut down, and I said, no, like that's crazy. That was on a Tuesday.
Mhm.
The next day, Wednesday night, we got an email saying that the university was closing down after spring break.
Mhm.
So we kind of had 2 days to say goodbye to everybody, and so yeah, that was very rushed.
Mhm.
But
Were you living on campus?
thankfully, I actually have an apartment off
Mhm.
campus.
So how has the past few months, how's it affected your life?
Well, the first thing, the most prominent issue to begin with was that I had a work study, um, which was very up in the air if I was going to have a job or not. So
Mhm.
my first priority was getting a job,
Yeah.
which thankfully I did. I did get hired at Fogler Library, which was very great. Um, but that was very, very stressful for a time period. And my husband works in a job that requires tourists to come to Maine.
Yeah.
So it was very uncertain for a time period.
Mhm.
But thankfully, we both have got it all worked out now. So
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So what about how was your class instruction? How did that change after
uh,
this
yeah,
university closed?
I was very lucky in that most of my classes were already very independent studies. So as I mentioned, I had my thesis,
Mhm.
I had a fellowship, and I had my internship at
Mhm.
the State House. So those
Mhm.
were all very independent things, anyways. And then I had one online class, and then I had one in-person class. But my one in-person class was a service learning project.
Mhm.
So we were ideally supposed to go into the community and do projects, which obviously could not continue. So we had um, an amazing professor of mine. She completely went and her name's Kendra Rand. Shout out. She completely redid our entire syllabus over spring break, and was just absolutely great on making sure that all the students were going to be able to get, all of our stuff done, and finish out the year strong. So that was really good. So
What had you intended your service project to be?
me and my partner, we were going to be helping the Challenger Learner Center in Bangor.
Okay.
So we were going to help them with their solar walk project. So,
What was the solar walk project going to be?
so it's something that they do, I think, every year. And so they have all of the planets
Okay.
and other space objects of the asteroid belt, and their different stations. So then kids and their families come, and then they can kind of do like educational, fun activities. And they were using that as a fundraiser to help have other projects. So
Mhm.
that has
Uh,
been postponed.
you've alluded to a fellowship. What was your fellowship?
Yeah, so I was an ENACT Labor Policy Fellow for the state of Maine. So ENACT is a national organization which basically helps college students get involved with their state politics.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a really intense year-long program. And so my project, all of our projects were different, was looking at the possibility of a good faith offer of sale bill, which basically means that mill companies who wanted to close down businesses, close down their mills, would be required or heavily suggested to offer up the mill for sale to another company or a workers' cooperative so that everybody in the mill wouldn't be laid off all at once, because when mills get closed, mill towns often face a lot of really devastating effects. So that was what my project was on. So I did a lot of research, and I worked with AFL-CIO in Maine to kind of do the background research so that we could have some legislation come out soon. So
very good. So you're currently working at the Fogler Library at the University of Maine?
Yep.
And what do they have you doing?
I am in the circulation department, so we are essential workers. So while we can't have patrons come into the building right now, we are mailing out books to people. Okay. So if you're a student or a faculty member, then you can just write to us, and then we will mail you your books. Okay. And so that's what we've been doing.
And do you know, will that be changing on July 1st?
For what we know right now, it's unlikely. But I do not speak on behalf of the library.
Okay. Well, I know we got a mailing yesterday that things are going to start to change as of July 1st.
Yeah.
The museum and library functions of the university. So it wasn't quite clear entirely how, but
right.
That's the next significant date.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to work out on how we can do it in a safe way. So.
And are you still having intentions to go on to graduate school?
Yes, I've been accepted to 2 universities, so I'm definitely going. It's just a matter of me picking. I'm waiting to hear back from my 3rd, which they need to have my final transcript before they can review my application. So I'm just waiting for that. And then I will be going. So yes.
And are you at liberty to share what your options might be?
Yes. So I most likely would be going to San Jose State University. It's all online, so I won't be going. But and then the other options is Simmons University, and then I am also waiting to hear back from Rutgers University. Okay. So.
Do you have a preference? I'm not going to make you. I'm not going to make you reveal it, but do you have a preference?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Well, I have a top 2. I have a top 2.
Okay. I hope it comes to fruition. And do you know, I mean, this may surprise people, but there are actually a lot of different areas of library work you can go into. Do you know what area you would like to specialize in?
I've narrowed it down quite a lot. I've been considering double majoring for my master's program. I might get a history one as well with the library and information sciences. I kind of would like to work in an archive or a specialty library.
For example, like that's the type of library the Margaret Chase Smith library.
Yes, exactly. But I also really like the role that public libraries serve, especially for rural communities. So I think I would definitely want to do one or the other for sure.
That's sort of like almost the poles of.
I know, yeah.
Which is fine, but I mean, obviously in your studies they'll give you training in a lot of different areas, but then usually you have to sort of pick what you're going to specialize in.
Yes, the thing that I love about the 3 schools that I applied to was that they each have their own build your own degree essentially. Okay. So I can quite literally pick whatever classes I'm taking. Each of them have like 4 classes that you have to take, which are, very basic librarian skills. And then you can pretty much specialize in whatever other types of classes that you want to take. So I'll just make a half and half.
Okay. And what do you have in store for the summer?
I am enjoying a break. That is what I'm doing. My husband and I, we are doing a lot of walks. We're finding a lot of like secluded parks and stuff that we didn't know existed that are basically in our backyard. And yeah, I'm just enjoying not having classes right now. So.
Very good.
Yeah.
Have you, pretty much been going to school since kindergarten?
Yes. Yeah. The grind has not stopped. So it'll be nice to have a summer break, and then I'll be back at it in the fall.
Very good. Well, believe it or not, we've already filled a half hour. So I want to
Wow.
thank you very much for being our inaugural interviewee for our Zoom interviews. We're going to try to do one a week. And I wish you well as you go on with your career.
Thank you. And thank you so much for interviewing me.
No.
So,
My pleasure. Thank you.
bye.